You're listening to The Support Report with Be Present, where we share real stories from young adults and how support changed their lives.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Support Report. We are, of course, Be Present. I am your host, Justin Peters, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Kiara Riga.
Also joining us today in this conversation is Jenni Dawn. Jenni is a 26-year survivor of ovarian cancer. She was diagnosed at 19. She's got a lot of great insight and wisdom and some stories to share today. Jenni, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Justin. Hi, Kiara. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So obviously 26 years, probably a crazy long story, but do you want to give us the spark notes of kind of your cancer story?
Absolutely. I'd love to. I know 26 years, it's funny. It's like the first time aging is a good thing, you know, like the numbers are good. I was, I think I was technically 18 when they found it. Routine checkup, second time ever going to the gynecologist during college. Very over-conscientious, awesome mom who set up a bunch of appointments for me on a weekend home from college. And I remember I had the dentist in the morning and after lunch, she dragged me to the gynecologist. And, you know, the rest is so foggy, but I just, I know that I never went back to school that year. You know, the first thing I said, telling the story recently, the thing I always say when I recap the story is that, you know, I looked at the gynecologist's face when I was on the table and I wish I was pregnant. You know, I wish that was her reaction. I had, I guess, the only symptom that would have been noticeable had I known of symptoms at the time was that I had gained a little weight and I was always generally pretty small. So I gained some weight, but I was a freshman and that was normal. So it was really shocking. And it turned out I had a 7.5-pound cyst in my stomach. And in that same appointment, I saw the ultrasound and I call it the black cloud. You couldn't see anything else. And, you know, the rest is history. I think I was in surgery 2 days later.
That's pretty crazy. That's a quick turnaround. And so good of your mom as well, because I think there's a lot of young adults who don't even think to go to the gynecologist at that age. So,
to be fair, I think, you know, we all have reasons to go. And for me, it wasn't about being sexually active. I actually, I think at the time, you know, it was the 90s and it was, you know, I wonder if I go to the gynecologist, if they'll put me on, maybe I can go on the pill for my skin. You know, it's such like a vanity thing, you know? So I went to the gyno and you know, honestly, 100% never would have gone to those appointments. Probably wouldn't have gone home for the weekend, you know? So yes, I'm alive today because of my mom. I tell her all the time. And it's another fascinating thing. And while we're on the topic of that appointment and taking your health in control and, you know, and watching your body and who you go to immediately, you know, that particular doctor, seeing the cyst, said, we can schedule surgery 2 weeks from Tuesday. You know, my mom said, well, she has college. What are you talking about? You know, and we didn't even think that sounded normal. So long story short, I went to a second opinion. And the next doctor said, that needs to come out tomorrow. And that's what happened. So it was about getting a second opinion and just feeling that instinct, you know, that there's something in me and it's got to come out. And he was right. And love that doctor. You know, he was like Dom DeLuise. He was huge. His hands were like this big. He scared the crap out of me. And all the same, he was the next one, you know, to save my life. So he's the one who did the surgery the next day. Yeah.
It's crazy. I do hear a lot of the stories that we have on the show. Second opinions seem to come into the picture quite frequently. And just second guessing too. A lot of times I mean, Kiara, your story is like a perfect example of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of told, oh, it's no big deal. It's just a cyst. Like, can't believe you're even here. And then lo and behold, like once I finally got diagnosed, it was in all of my bones. But had I gone to see someone else, had I had another opinion, maybe it would have been a different story. So yeah, second opinions are huge. And honestly, even if you love, like, I love my oncologist, but I still have a second oncologist at Stanford because they're never, like, nobody's ever going to agree. No. So, yeah, second opinions I think are huge.
So, you said 2 days later you have surgery, and what happens after that? You're in college, so like, there's got to be some questions like, where are you at, Jenni? How did you communicate with your friends, or what happened? What was the spiral from there forward?
Everything changed. I didn't understand. I mean, that was the first time I saw my mom cry in the office. And then the very next day was the first time I saw my dad cry. And this is all, 18. And then at the same time, I'm trying to understand and process, when am I going back? I'm in a sorority, and, I have a boyfriend and all these things, and I have classes, and they just began. It's my sophomore year, University of Miami. Maybe this will be quick. Maybe I didn't understand. I had heard I heard a friend had a cyst and they went through her belly button. Maybe it's like that, you just try to maybe recall someone's story. But there wasn't the time of signing on, also I'm probably lucky not to sign on and look at, WebMD or something and try to self-diagnose, but you're lost in the woods, what's happening to me. And the worst part, I say I have a top 3, but the worst part was when I got to surgery, they had asked me to sign a piece of paper, and that was to have hysterectomy. And if that was needed in surgery. And for me, that was the moment, that this is serious, and when I woke up from surgery, it was the first question I asked, other than feeling the incredible pain of hearing that I was like a pretzel on the operating table. And the pain was resulting from that, not exactly the actual surgery, but I just, said, do I still have my stuff, and it turned out they only removed my left ovary. And surgery took very long time, double the time it was supposed to. And by some miracle, they left in one ovary and one tube. And I didn't even understand what that meant. But I think it took 4 days for pathology to come back. And in those days, they were very positive, and they thought, there's no way it's malignant. There's no way. So on the day, I think it was OJ was acquitted, literally that day. Yeah, the whole hospital's looking up at televisions and all these doctors. I think there was 4 of them, and then a nurse or 2 behind them, marched in. And, I saw my dad hunched over in the hallway, and, they just started throwing terms at me, and, I'm hearing them, but I'm just thinking, I'm not going back to school. It's just going in one ear and coming out the other is something else. But yeah, I did not go back to school. Before I forget to tell you, I somehow returned to school the next year and caught up and graduated with my friends on time. Somehow, some miracle. I just I walked the aisle with them, and that's my miracle college story. But no, I did not. I packed it up and I went right into treatment 2 weeks later.
And from some of the pre-notes that you sent over, it sounded like you isolated yourself from treatment. Like you maybe had some initial friends freeze whenever they first heard some of the news, and you backed off.
They froze. I say a lot. So I help a lot of people privately with their with their cancer and their stories, and a lot of women in similar positions in the last, 25 years. Well, to be fair, in the last 20 years, since I felt more comfortable, like I was really a survivor in whatever sense of the word that is, right? I feel like, I'm sorry, what was your question, Justin? I just got lost. What was it?
I guess I didn't have a specific question.
Oh, isolated.
I was looking,
isolated.
I was looking for a feeling, and maybe actually why you even made that decision.
Oh, it was, I have to go back to that. That was incredible. So as soon as the news broke that I wasn't coming back, I can't even remember who said what, but everyone froze. And it hurt so badly. I had, so many friends. I mean, it was my existence, right? I was the center of everyone. I mean, even saying these words out loud right now, it's funny, right? I was homecoming queen, I was like the center of my group of friends in the rooms wherever we were, and from, high school to now college at the time. And if I tell you, it was really hard to understand. So at the first glimpse of people freezing, and now, recognizing that maybe they didn't carry the maturity to handle it, or the tools, or whatever, it takes for what support is, which, I have many theories on what that is now, I just cocooned. I was so broken and so lost that I made a decision somewhere, and it was just me and my parents. And I even hid from family because I just couldn't believe it was happening to me. And especially when my hair started falling out, which was second treatment, which is funny, because they say, you may lose some hair, it all came out. And as soon as that happened, it was an isolation it came so naturally, and it was so torturous at the same time. But yeah, I cocooned, and I stayed in an apartment near the hospital with my parents, and just hid out. And then it was easier, because then when I was feeling all the effects from chemo and becoming even more isolated due to my immune system and all of that, I was just in the hospital, which was an even easier place. I can't see anybody. But yeah, my friends sort of froze, and without good reason, and it hurt.
So why, did you feel support? You chose to kind of go into your cocoon, right? But did you feel supported by the people who were kind of around you? Do you wish that your friends had done something differently? What would you have liked that ideal support to look like?
Well, my parents were the best. I mean, my whole life. They were the best parents you could ask for going through cancer.
Can you tell the lobster story too? I know you put that in the notes.
It's the best. Okay. And it's the epitome of my dad, let him rest in peace, who fought Parkinson's for 17 years. So that's his story. I think it was during my second treatment, I was in the hospital and I had a craving for lobster, and he drove an hour and got me lobster. He said he'd be right back, and he came back with lobster. It was just the moment. I won't cry. You're not going to get me to cry, you guys. But he brought it back, and I remember you could smell it, coming down the hall. That's not so good on the cancer floor, but it was in the tin foil, and it was just the delivery, it was just the best lobster I ever had, he drove out to Oyster Bay to get the best, that's my dad. Nothing ever tasted better. And we know if you have a craving and you need to eat, you get the damn lobster. So, yeah, he's so great. But back to your question, Kiara, it's like, I wish that my best friends, even if I created the distance physically, if I preferred physically not to be with people, just, talk to me, just be normal on the phone. It wasn't an email time, which now we know we have this comfort of the computer, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing all the time, it's case by case, but then, just give me a call or let me know you called, send something not, cancer related, send something that, is us. You get the flowers and that's fine. And then when that stops, it's just in your room is empty and you're into month 3, it's so lonely. And then you look to the next phase, which I'm sure we'll talk about, now what, now who can help me, now who can I talk to? And then you're also lost, right, in that regard. So it's really hard. I mean, I just watched old movies, and I didn't start reading cancer books until maybe the very last treatment. That's what I turned to them.
So after treatment, I guess you spent like so many young adults, you got put into the adult wing and felt pretty isolated or out of place, maybe is a better word there. I know you initially had a roommate. Why don't you just walk us through your experience in general being in the adult wing, and then let's talk a little bit about that roommate.
So my surgeon operated out of a hospital, which sort of had a choice between the children's wing and the adult wing. And it was like, where to put me, just like my tumor, how to treat me, it was constantly a decision. So I was a 19-year-old, 18 turning 19, in the adult floor. And we know, especially with women's cancers, with my tumor, it was so rare. I was like 1 in, I don't know how many million with the type of tumor I had. So I was certainly especially young on my floor, with the other patients. So my first inpatient time, I had a roommate because I wasn't, alone in a room yet. I was still okay to be with someone. And I had a roommate, and her name was Ethel. And she was a dancer on Broadway. And the first thing she said to me was like, what the hell are you doing in here? She said something like, how does God give someone like you cancer? But she was real, and I loved her. It was the first time I chased my parents, out of the room, because she talked real to me, just how much it sucked. And, and she was so brave, and here I was, constantly feeling, my hair coming out, and she's just walking around with her beautiful bald head and her red lips, and she's just this beautiful black skin, and she's gorgeous. She's this Broadway dancer. She had stomach cancer, and I don't know how long she was sick at the time. I don't remember. And she had a husband, and, I don't know what day of the week it was, but I woke up and, Ethel was gone. I didn't see her husband. I don't remember who told me. I think that was the first time I got, depressed during treatment. Not to think like, did she pass, in the bed next to me, and to think about being so close, to that. But it was, I guess, in the literal sense of being so close to that, as opposed to like a grandparent or something. I think I finally felt the fear of cancer. I felt what you're supposed to be afraid of, and I got angry, and that's when I sort of started fighting maybe a little more, and treating it a little bit more, a little bit less like a victim. And I got a little more pissed off, after that. Yeah.
That's
She was
tough.
beautiful. Yeah.
What got you out of that place? Because clearly, I mean, I see some of the things that you did afterwards and the journey you've taken since then. What I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that seems like almost rock bottom for you.
Yes. I think that her passing was rock bottom for me, for sure. I had a really high moment on my last day of treatment. I got a heart with a rainbow on it from the children's floor. They make it for you, and it's made out of clay, and it's a pin. And they present it to you, and they ring the bell. And it was my last day. And that bell, I mean, that day, that moment, it felt victorious at the time. I didn't know much about cancer. You know, it's not like now where we have all this stuff that feeds us and all these things and stories that we watch and we read and we compare. So this was just my story at the time, you know, and whether that's a luckier version than like what Kiara has to see and face and look at and, you know, and watch and I didn't know, you know, anything but Ethel, right? And what was around me. And I just, you know, wanted to get out of there. And I was free. So go on, Jenni, with your 99% cure back to school, you know? But like you said, you know, I isolated myself. And at the time, I'd mentioned this, you know, in the pre-notes with the wigs, you know, I was so adamant about cocooning that I never to this day saw my head without hair. My mom covered all the mirrors in the house. I hid from the mirrors myself. I wore wigs that just looked like myself. You know, I just hid that whole chapter in a way, you know? So that day, that bell, that pin was so special. And then months later, I was at a cancer walk. It was like a Making Strides walk in Miami. And I looked down at my t-shirt and I had a team and it was like Team Miro and we raised like a ton of money and I was so proud. And I immediately started like all my, you know, causes and advocacy and like started like, you know, literally marching on and being like fierce, you know, for this cause. And I looked down and the freaking pin was gone. Well, the pin was on, but the heart was gone. We looked everywhere. And it was a year later to the day. And I thought, oh, you know, I have to move on, you know, I have to live. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that was sort of when I got my start. And that's when I, you know, hustled and graduated on time, which, you know, maybe if I went back and redid that, I might have listened to my dad and traveled the world or done something a little different, you know, now looking at the world, you know. I just sort of like wanted to like assume normalcy and, you know, and be Jenni again. But I definitely woke up that day, you know.
So what did that look like for you? You said you wanted to get back to normal and get back to Jenni, but I think those of us in the cancer world know that there is no more normal
ever.
So what did that look like for you kind of moving on from treatment?
So 26 years later, it's like there is still no normal. And I'm so glad you bring that up. It's still a life living as a survivor ? Right? Everything, and not to sound so cliche, but every doctor's appointment, every day you wake up feeling, you know, like fortunate, everything. But in that time, if you're referring to that time, it was so far from normal. I went back to my sorority with a wig on. Everybody was looking at me. They wrote about me in the school paper, you know. You know, my boyfriend was long gone, right, with some girl, you know, like everything was not normal. But wow, was I a different person. I was becoming a different person than I was before. And maybe you feel this, Kiara, and I'm sure people watching might feel this. And this is something I experience a lot when I talk to people going through it. The why me, right, starts to like really emerge. Not during it. I feel like people are always like, why me? Of course, that's the question, right? You're not like starting to answer that until you're like looking back at it. So the why me was like being answered every day after it. So that was my new normal, you know? I was suddenly really like aware of life and more present in a way that is not cliche. I literally was more alive, you know? I say this thing that, you know, probably drives my friends crazy, which by the way, I have very good best friendships now. Lots of them have come back, you know, but, you know, windows down in the car, feeling that fresh air, you know, like that's the me after cancer. I don't like the Jenni before cancer.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I would love to. For me personally, and maybe for, you know, people watching this and people trying to understand it, I took everything for granted before I had cancer. Not just life, not just the big stuff, everything, little stuff. I think I was lousy, you know, I was a brat, you know, I just had everything. I was so lucky and had everything going for me. I didn't appreciate it. If somebody said, you have to answer why me, you have to give us an answer. That's my answer. It had to wake me up. I love every year who I am after the cancer. Like if I had to give a resume, like to someone, my life, you know, cancer's first. I mean, I'm sure I'm proudest of being a mom because it's a miracle, but that's because of cancer made it a miracle, you know? I am completely in love with being alive. Now, that's not to say I am obsessed with fearing death. Of course I am. That'll never change. But the me that loves life and appreciates life and loves people, you know, gosh, that like makes me cry, you know, like I just like love such simple things, but like the road I was taking at 18, you know, that like straight hair, like, you know, blow my hair out, like strict, superficial person is it's like, she's history, you know, man, she even had like a different name, you know, I went by Jen. I don't even know who she is. Like, you know, so to me, it's magic, you know, like when I got that huge scar down there, you know, like that's my reminder, you know, when I'm naked and I'm out of the shower, I'm, you know, like, you know, that happened to me. Right. And there was a reason, like, I know it, I feel it. I really do. And so, in that way, you know, call it crazy, call it whatever, but I am, you know, I like the post-cancer me a whole lot more. Did that answer the question?
It does. And I feel the same way. It's like a hard thing to vocalize, but I feel the same way. So I definitely, and there's no post-cancer for me, but just as soon as it came into my life, I wasn't the same.
Right. It's like a new life. It's certainly a new existence. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I feel you when you say that too, Kara.
So I'm kind of interested with post-cancer, or, you know, you came back to college, you started this, I think it was like a newsletter or something called Butterflies. And then you just went on this like spree of like really, I feel like whenever you're writing us and I was reading through that, it was like kind of making meaning out of your survivorship. You were directly answering that whole question, like, why me? But why did I survive? like, how do I show thanks? Tell us about the journey tell us the journey about post-cancer and, some of the things that you tried and what gets you really excited and what you're working on now.
Justin, that was exactly it. Like, why did I survive? That's really the question. Yeah, I was gung ho. So maybe I shouldn't have like ran back to school, but I did. I started this like newsletter, and gosh, I am old now that we do talk about the years, but it was like a printed newsletter, and I had a PO box, and I called it Butterflies, which is like, sounds so lame now, but for obvious reasons. And I just tried to have this, like, any cancer survivors that were in, the age group of young adults, which I think was, I don't know, for me then, I think I was trying to say, I don't know if I said like 15 to 25 or something then that made sense to me. Right. And then, I don't know, I think I mailed it out to like a couple of hospitals. And then I also volunteered at whatever hospitals were near my college, from Jackson Memorial or whatever was down there in Miami. And I just tried to balance it all and do too much, as I know Kiara mentioned once, you just try to do too much. You just really try to live. So, you're just trying to like give back and make sense of it. And then, so I did all that, and then I got to LA. So I ran to LA right after graduation to, work in Hollywood. But while I started working in Hollywood, I started another cancer survivor group on like Craigslist or something completely crazy. And we had like meetings on Sunset. I think I had 2 or 3 meetings. Oh gosh. And 2 people showed up, which was like huge for me, I was so proud of it. I just wanted to know other people, like me were around. And I just wanted to help, And then when I started working in Hollywood and living this crazy life that, again, maybe I never would have or tried to do, see the world. And I've seen the world. I really have. I've tried to sort of thread cancer wherever I can. I had a client once, and we were doing so well. So we just, donated, and we just made our whole clothing line about ovarian cancer. And then, I do what I can wherever I can. And that's, how I found Be Present. I was like, whoa, this is exactly what Butterflies was, in 19, gosh, I don't even know when that was, 97. So it's like so exciting for me because this is something I do sort of privately, I feel like I've been like a secret weapon for people in similar shoes for so long, because like when I was sick, there was absolutely nothing. There was no group, there was nothing. There was maybe one American Cancer Society meeting, like one Sunday a month or something, and then sure enough, you're going to be too sick probably to get there. You're going to miss it, So, I've been the phone call for so many. So what you guys are doing is just like blows my mind, just to know that somebody can click on YouTube and just like hear, a conversation like this, just to, maybe help someone out, like someone I talked to last month. It's awesome to me.
That's awesome. And I love to hear how much you're doing in the cancer community. That's really fantastic. Do you want to let anyone listening know where they can find you?
Sure. Instagram as always. Back on Instagram a lot. So you'll put it all in the show notes, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jenni Dawn Muro on Instagram. And then it's really exciting. I just recently announced that I'm working on my book finally. I know, thank you. Yes, and it's called I'm Not Going Anywhere. So it's very exciting. So that
can you give us a teaser? What to expect?
Let's just say all my tales of being a full-time and professional survivor. There are a lot of stories. We could talk for hours. I think that everybody can identify with something in there. And that's what you'll find. And only just one chapter about Hollywood. We don't need to put any more than that. But it's a long time coming. I'm really excited about it. It was something I started in about 2009 and stopped and didn't open again until COVID. So so it's very exciting to me. So when that happens, I'll Be Present will be the first to know about it.
Love that. And we can see more updates about that on your website, or?
Yes, the website too, jennidawn.com. All my websites will be up on there.
Awesome. We will keep track of you there. Well, Jenni, thank you so much. We like to end this with one quick, if you could give like a 2-sentence of what good support looks like to you, what would that be?
Anything. Do anything.
I love that. I really love that. Thank you so much, Jenni. This has been, sorry.
Aww.
Were you going to say something?
You're there? No, I was going to thank you guys. I was going to thank you guys. I mean, Justin, you're so awesome. And thank you. You've been doing these. And I just think it's so cool that you do these for the community. And sometimes I think it's even cooler that you have to be a survivor yourself. Because I used to say, like, you don't have to have, when I worked in a different thing, I said, you don't have to have cancer to like work here. It makes it even better just to be objective. And I just think it's so rad that you do it. And Kiara, I'm thinking of you all the time and just like fight on, and your spirit is obvious. So I'll be thinking of you every day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jenni, for coming on. This has been awesome. And to everyone else, we will catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.